Hello children, welcome back to the channel. Today we will be discussing the important topic of friction. But prior to that, we will try and find a solution to the problem that I had given in the previous video. That is, a balloon of mass m was accelerating downwards in air, was accelerating downwards with an acceleration a. What mass m needs to be taken out of the balloon so that it, instead of accelerating downwards, it accelerates upwards with the same acceleration a. To do this, first we need to remember that when the object or anything is released in the air being a fluid, it will be subjected to an upward thrust due to the buoyancy. So there will be an upward thrust or upward force acting on the balloon. Let's call this F. At the same time, the weight of the balloon is pulling it downwards. Say mg is the weight. So, for the mass m or for the balloon with the entire mass in it, the equation of motion becomes the downward force mg minus the upward force F must be equal to m into a, which gives us the downward force F equal to m into g minus a. Part 1. Now, when mass m is taken out of the balloon, the remaining mass of the balloon becomes m minus small m. And in this case also, this upthrust will be there, F. However, the force, downward force now becomes m minus small m into g. It has reduced. This is the reason why the balloon starts moving upwards. Now, if you consider the upward motion of the balloon, then F is upwards minus m minus small m into g. Downward weight must be equal to the mass, that is m minus small m, the remaining mass of the balloon, multiplied by the upward acceleration a. If we substitute the value of F from this equation, we get F is mg minus ma. Then the minus sum, minus m into g, minus and minus plus small m into g, must be equal to capital M into a minus small m into a. Clearly, these two mc terms will cancel, right? And we have to find small m, right? So, what we will do, we will take these two terms to the left hand side of the equation now. So, we will be left with mg plus ma. Take these two terms to the right hand side and we will get 2 capital M into A. Or we can rewrite this as M, taking M common, we have G plus A, so we do a little bit of calculation and algebra and we find 2MA divided by G plus A. This is our required solution. Alright, now let's move into friction. So, up till now, when we discussed about laws of motion, that is Newton's laws of motion, what we have discussed is that a force is applied to a body and the body starts accelerating immediately. However, and the entire force applied, the external force that is applied, gets converted into motion of the body, F equal to dp by dt. Now, in real life, what we see is that that doesn't seem to be the case. Or, if we start, say, pushing a chair, if we apply a small amount of force by F is equal to ma or F is equal to dp by dt, the chair should have gathered certain motion. However, it doesn't happen. If we increase the force further, it still doesn't move. It only after we have attained or achieved a certain amount of force that the chair starts moving. Does it? So, natural question comes, is Newton's laws violated in this case? The answer, of course, is no. The fact is that the object that we encounter in real life has a certain property known as friction. Now, what happens is that whenever you apply a force to create a motion, say we have a block resting on a surface and we apply a force here to accelerate the block. Due to the inherent property of the matter, the block and the surface actually tries to resist this motion. That is, if there is a relative motion between two surfaces, or if there is a tendency to create relative motion between two surfaces, the surfaces in contact resist this motion by virtue of certain property which is known as the friction. So, by definition, friction is a property of matter by virtue of which it opposes any relative motion between two surfaces in contact. How does it oppose the relative motion? By exerting a force in the opposite direction along the line of contact, along the surface of contact. That is, there will be a force of friction that will be generated in the opposite direction to the applied force. Now, why does this force appear? Now, to look into that, what we need to do is that we need to zoom that surface or the two surfaces in contact. If you put it under certain strong or powerful microscope, what you will see is that these two surfaces are not actually smooth as it appears. The surfaces might appear to you to be like something like this, the upper surface, and also the lower surface might be something like this. Under strong microscope. So what is happening here is that even if the surface is very large, there are very few points of contact between the surfaces. And because the object itself is very massive, so there will be a huge amount of force due to gravity that is acting on it. So at these small points of contact, there will be a very huge pressure. Because of the pressure, what happens is that the molecules that are at these points of contact, they develop certain bonds. Once you get into certain kind of a molecular bond between the two surfaces, to create any relative motion, to slide this upper body over the lower surface, you need to break those bonds. And to break those bonds, you need to spend certain amount of, or apply certain amount of force, or spend certain amount of energy. That energy ultimately develops into heat. So whenever a body slides over another surface, certain amount of heat is also generated. That's what we have already seen by rubbing two objects together or rubbing your hands together. You can warm up your hand or rub two stones together to create fire. This is all because of friction. Now let's move into the properties of friction. Now what we have observed, or what we observe in real life also, is that when we apply a certain amount of force to move an object, it generally doesn't move. We need to increase the force until we cross a threshold amount of force. Which means this force, why it so happens? This is only because of the fact that this force of friction, the force that is generated due to friction at the interface between the two, between the object and the surface, is adjusting itself to the applied force, which means that frictional force or force of friction is self-adjusting. So if the applied force increases, the force of friction increases. If the applied force decreases, the force of friction decreases. If the applied force becomes equal to 0, the force of friction will become 0. And this will keep increasing only to a particular limit, beyond which the frictional force cannot increase. That is, if we cross a particular threshold, the self-adjusting force of friction is no longer sufficient to oppose the relative motion between the object and the surface. And that particular threshold of force or the maximum amount of frictional resistance or frictional force that the interface can offer is known as force of limiting friction. Force of limiting friction. Now, as long as the applied force is less than this limiting frictional force or force of limiting friction, there will not be any sliding between the two objects. And so, this frictional force that is generated, because there is no motion actually, the force is even if the frictional force is developed, there is no relative motion between the two surfaces, or in other words, the object is static. That's why this frictional force is known as static, or this type of friction is known as static friction. Okay, now what happens when we cross this threshold or the limiting friction? When we increase the force beyond the limiting friction, obviously the friction cannot contain the object or contain the motion any further. So the object will start moving and it will start accelerating. And so since the object is now moving, there will still be friction, and that friction will be known as kinetic friction because the object is moving. Okay, now let's discuss about certain laws governing limiting friction. That is the limiting case of static friction, the maximum value of static friction. Now, since friction manifests itself as a force, so whenever from now onwards we will be using the term friction to imply frictional force or force of friction. Okay, so limiting friction is that what we can do is that we call this as S for static, force of static friction. So this is actually Fs, and it's a self-adjusting force. The maximum value of static friction or force of static friction is known as the limiting friction. So we can identify or define limiting friction, denote limiting friction by this, the maximum value of static friction. Okay, now what does it depend upon? First of all, the limiting friction will depend on the nature of the surfaces in contact. What kind of surfaces are in contact? Different contact surfaces will give rise to different amounts of limiting friction, or different amounts of friction, and will have different amount of different values for limiting friction. Number two is that this force of limiting friction is always tangential to the surface in contact, as we have seen here. So it's always tangential. Number three is that it doesn't depend on the area of contact. So what is the area that is in contact doesn't matter to the friction, independent of area of contact. Say you have a piece of brick. So whether you keep it face up or you keep it, say, one side on, or you put it on one of the ends. Let's say like this. All the cases, since the surface in contact are the same and the area of contact doesn't matter, what it means is that as long as the object is the same and the surface on which it's standing is the same, in all these three cases we will have the same value of limiting friction, as long as R is constant. What it means is that, what is R? R is the normal reaction or the reaction force that is developed here. which is actually equal to mg, the weight of the object. So whether you put the object side on or face up or at standing on one end or side on, the weight will remain the same. And as a result, the normal reaction will remain the same. So as long as the object is the same, the mass remains the same, or the weight remains the same, or the normal reaction remains the same, the friction, limiting friction, is independent of the area of contact. Which means that this frictional force, maximum value, that is limiting friction, depends on the normal reaction. And it is found to be proportional, directly proportional to the normal reaction. Therefore, Fs max, that is force of limiting friction, can be said to be equal to some constant of proportionality mu s into r, wherein this constant of proportionality, this is a constant for the two given surfaces of this object and the floor. If these two surfaces change, this mu s will change. So it's a constant of the surfaces. This constant is known as coefficient of friction. However, since we are considering static friction, this S stands for static. So basically, coefficient of static friction is equal to limiting friction divided by the normal reaction. Since the numerator and denominator are both forces, so mu s is a dimensionless constant for the given two surfaces. Okay, now let's say we have overcome the limiting friction, that is, we have applied a force larger than the threshold force or the limiting frictional force. So the object will start moving. Let us say the object is moving with certain velocity due to the application of force F. Even then, there will be a friction. However, this friction will no longer be static friction because the object is now moving over the surface. So this friction will now be called kinetic friction and given by Fk. Okay. Now, as far as its properties are concerned, it also doesn't depend on the surface. It also depends on the surface in contact. Different surfaces will have different amounts of kinetic friction. Then, it also is independent of the area, as was the case with static friction. Further, it is independent of the velocity with which the object is moving over or is sliding over the surface. As long as the velocity is not v not too large or too small. For moderate velocities, the kinetic friction doesn't depend on the velocity of the object over the surface where it's sliding. But as in the case of static friction, limiting friction, it is proportional to the normal reaction. That is to say, Fk equal to some constant of proportionality into R. This is known as coefficient of kinetic friction. Now, if we plot a graph between the applied force and the frictional force that is generated, what we have found is that For the initial phase when the object was not moving, for static friction, it was a self-adjusting force. It increased with the increase of F. So it will start from the origin and it will keep on increasing in a linear way till it reaches its maximum point. This is static friction, right? The peak of this graph is the Fs maximum, the maximum value of static friction that can be generated, the limiting friction. Beyond this, what is observed is that it comes down and then it becomes almost static or parallel to the f-axis. The value stops changing with increasing force. This part is Fk, the kinetic friction. So beyond this particular point, the object will start moving. For very small velocities, it will slowly decrease and then it becomes a constant. For moderate velocities, it will remain a constant.